Sweltering heat, no electricity, it's not a good combination. It sounds like a third world country, but no, it's the richest state in the United States, and it's not by accident. As a matter of fact, it's much more serious. And in this video, I'm gonna explain what's happening and why it's coming to the rest of the country and to the world. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss. I do these videos because I believe the only real security we have in life is to take responsibility for ourselves. We have to learn how to make money, how to grow our money, how to protect our money so that we have options in life, all right? The world's changing fast, and if you agree and you want to hear more about these topics, click the like button right now. Also hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you're notified every time I put new videos out. Now, we are talking about raging heat. We're talking about no air conditioning, no electricity, like a third world country. But no, it's right here in the richest state in the country and one of the richest areas in the world. Now, what I'm talking about, we've seen all over the news. We have wildfires that have been raging across most of the US, most of the Western US anyway. In California specifically, wildfires everywhere. We've had really high temperatures, heat waves, and of course, it's summertime. It's the West Coast. It gets hot in the summer here. The thing is, though, is that temperatures were pretty much in line with standard. So it was hot. Of course, it's summer, but they're in line what's normal for this time of year. But what isn't normal is that with the high temperatures and with the smoke-filled air because of all the fires, and then on top of it, everyone's already staying inside because of COVID, but they're all doing so without electricity. And that's because the power grid in California, the grid, couldn't produce enough electricity for everybody. And now this is at a time, keep in mind, this is at a time when businesses are shut down. California is still one of the strictest states in the country, and businesses are completely shut down. That means office buildings shut down, gyms closed, movie theaters closed, schools shut down. They're all closed. All those big companies, schools, etc., that use electricity aren't even open. And yet the grid still couldn't deliver enough electricity needed for the home. So just think about that for a minute. At a time when it's the hottest and you're at home and you have no electricity, you have no air conditioning to cool down, you have no power to run your computer. Well, the kids are doing homeschool. They need their computers. They can't run their computers. Adults can't work from home. If they're working from home, they can't do that. Now, last week, this has happened in California. Like I said, it resembled more of like a third world country than it did in the United States. But for contrast, as a matter of fact, I was actually in Mexico, and I was deep in Mexico, not a resort community, deep in Mexico. As a matter of fact, I was in a town with only one paved road. The temperatures were about the same as California, but they didn't have any problems with electricity. As a matter of fact, our electricity in Mexico never went out one single time. So what gives? What's the problem? How is it that California is the richest state in the United States, right? After all, we have Hollywood, we have Silicon Valley. The economy, the state of California economy is so large, it's the richest in the United States. It's actually, if it were a country, it's the 5th largest economy in the world if it was a country. And not just that the economy, the GDP is big, but it's also the richest as far as revenue, because not only do they have the highest economy, they also have the biggest taxes. As a matter of fact, California state taxes are the most in the nation, and not just the most, they're almost double the second highest state in the country, right? So, I mean, there's plenty of money, and yet they still can't manage it. They have more than enough money for energy, for electricity, but they can't seem to figure it out. And on top of that, the rates that we pay in California for our energy, for our electricity, are about 6 times more than the rest of the country. In some states, you see 6, 7, 8 cents per kilowatt hour. Nope, in California, it's about 40. So we're already paying 6 times more, and we still can't get the power. Even with all that, we still don't get steady electricity. But the big problem here, big problem that this video is about, is it's not by accident, all right? This is not by accident. As a matter of fact, I believe it's done by design. And the scary part is, as I said in the intro, this is coming to a state or an area near you, and sooner than you think. Whether you're in the US or in another country, you're going to need to be prepared, because I'm going to explain to you right here. So what is this design that I'm talking about? What is this design that's going to cause this to happen, and why is it going to leak to the rest of the country? Why is it going to leak to the rest of the world? Well, First, we have to look at the design, okay? So the underlying reasons that California is experiencing blackouts is from the state's climate policies, which aim to completely remove the use of coal and natural gas and move 100% of the electricity to renewable energy. And like I said, the whole country, the whole United States is under that, and the rest of the world, at least the developed world, Western Europe, etc., is all trying to move towards that as well. And so you're going to see exactly what's going to happen. Now, of course, getting away from fossil fuels and moving 100% to renewables sounds great, right? I'm for it. Everybody's for it. No, this video is not against that. Sounds great. Everybody loves that. But there is a problem. It's not about what we want. It's about what reality is, okay? So first, it's super expensive. But it's worse than that. In the end, it doesn't work. All right. Now, California, like I said, already seen its electricity prices rise 6 times more than the rest of the United States from 2011 to 2019 due to its huge expansion of renewables. So they were putting billions of dollars into renewables and shutting down regular electricity plants at the same time, which caused the power prices to go up so high. And yet, even with that, we're still unable to meet the demands, right? And why is it again? Like I said, it's simple. Have you ever heard of unobtainium? Does that ring a bell? Well, it's the magical energy mineral found on the planet called Pandora, and it's from the movie Avatar. Now, it's a fantasy and a science fiction novel, but environmentalists think that we found it here on Earth, but it's in the form of wind and solar power, all right? So that's what we're trying to move to, wind and solar power. They all think that all the energy we need can be supplied by building enough wind and enough solar farms and, of course, enough batteries. Now, the simple truth, though, is that we can't, right? And not only can we not do it, but we shouldn't want to do it. Now, what makes me qualified to talk about this? Well, for one, I had a solar company for 4 years. So I worked in the solar space for about 4 years. So I know that industry pretty well, both on the industrial and the residential side. And of course, as a market analyst, I've studied this like crazy. And let's break this down. So like I said, I don't believe we can, and I don't believe we should. And I'm going to tell you why right now. If one of our goals is to be good stewards of the planet, which of course this whole climate change agenda is, right? Saving the planet. So if our goal is to really save the planet, then we have to understand all the costs. All right. Everything has a give and a take. All right. So to understand this, just consider some very, very simple physics realities, okay? Ones that aren't being talked about. So you see, all sources of energy have limits that can't be exceeded, all right? The maximum rate at which the sun's photons can be converted to electrons, converting electricity, is about 33%. Now today, our best solar technology is about 26% efficient. For wind, the maximum capture is about 60%, and our best machines today are about 45%. So there's a little bit of room for improvement, but we're pretty close to the limits of wind and solar plants right now. Now, despite everything that you hear, the PR claims about big games coming, there just aren't really any possible. Like I said, we're already pretty efficient. And then the other thing is that wind and solar only works when the wind blows or when the sun shines. But the thing is that we need energy all the time, not just when the sun is shining. As a matter of fact, more energy is used during the evening because that's when everybody's home and everything's on. So what's the solution? Well, of course, batteries, right? So we store up the energy from the solar and the wind in batteries. Of course, no big deal, except for we have physics and we have chemistry, right? There are limitations. So physics and chemistry tell us that this is actually really hard to do. So let's put this into perspective. Consider the world's biggest battery factory right now is the one that Tesla built in Nevada. It's the world's largest battery factory. And it would take that battery factory, the largest one in the world, it would take them 500 years for that factory to make enough batteries to store just 1 day's worth of America's electricity needs. I'm going to say it again. 500 years to make enough batteries to store 1 day's of America's electricity needs. So that explains why wind and solar currently still supply less than 3% of the world's energy after 20 years and billions of dollars in subsidies. Now, if we put aside the economics, right, if your motive is to protect the environment, so let's put aside the money and let's look at protecting the environment, then you might want to rethink wind and solar and batteries, because like all machines, they're built from non-renewable materials. Consider some of these numbers. Now, a single electric car battery weighs about half a ton, okay? Fabricating wind requires digging up and moving and processing more than 200 and 50 tons of earth somewhere else on the planet. To get the materials, we have to dig up and move 250 tons of earth somewhere on the planet. Building a single 100 megawatt wind farm that could power about 75,000 homes requires some 30,000 tons of iron ore, 50,000 tons of concrete, and about 900 tons of non-recyclable plastics for the huge blades. So to get the same power from solar, or the amount of cement, steel, and glass needed is about 150% greater. So we need about 150% more to get it from solar than we would from wind. Then there's the other minerals that are needed, including elements known as rare earth metals, okay? But current plans, the world needs an incredible 200 to about a 2,000% increase in mining to get these elements. We don't have them. What am I talking about? I'm talking about cobalt, lithium, dysprosium, I mean, just to name a few, right? So where is all this new stuff going to come from? Well, of course, it means massive new mining operations. Now, of course, these giant mines digging huge holes in the earth, of course, none of it really happens in America, but it does happen in some other important places. So for example, places that are very hostile to America, like China. So we're going to continue to put all our business in China, or maybe some places we want to protect, like the rainforest in Amazon, for example. Now, Australia's Institute for Sustainable Futures cautions that a global gold rush for energy materials will take miners into remote wilderness areas that have maintained high biodiversity because they haven't yet been disturbed. And of course, who's doing the mining? Let's just say that they're not OSHA approved unions, right? Let's just say that they're not union workers with union protections or any of that. Amnesty International paints actually a much more disturbing picture. And they say that the marketing of state-of-the-art technologies is a very stark contrast to the children that are carrying bags of rocks. That's what happens in the mines in third world countries. Kids working in the mines, carrying bags of rocks up and down. And then the mining itself requires massive amounts of conventional energy, right? So diesel to go in the tractors, etc., and a regular electricity to process all the stuff. Right? It requires a massive amount of conventional energy, as do the energy-intensive industrial processes needed to refine the materials. And then build the wind, the solar, the battery hardware. And then we have even a bigger problem after that, and that is the waste. Wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries have a pretty short shelf life. As a matter of fact, they're good for about 20 years. Conventional energy machines like gas turbines that would take natural gas and convert it to electricity last about twice as long. So every 20 years we have to replace them. With current plans, the International Renewable Energy Agency calculates that by 2050, the disposal of worn out solar panels will constitute over double the tonnage of all of today's global plastic waste. And then on top of that, we have the worn out wind turbines, the batteries, and that's going to add millions more tons of waste. All right, it's going to be a completely new environmental challenge that we have. And the fuels that make our marvelous modern world possible and technology is making it easier to acquire a cleaner and an easier way to use them every day. Now, the following comparisons are typical and instructive. Right? It costs about the same to drill one oil well as it does to build one giant wind turbine. And while the wind turbine generates the energy equivalent to about 1 barrel of oil per hour, the oil rig produces 10 barrels per hour. And it costs less than 50 cents to store a barrel of oil or its equivalent of natural gas. But you would need $200 worth of batteries just to hold the energy contained in 1 barrel of oil. So 50 cents to store it in a barrel, or $200 to store it in batteries, plus all the mining and the rare earth elements and the disposal that it takes to build those batteries. All right, think about it. So unobtainium, it works. It works great in the movies. But we don't live in the movies. We live in the real world. But this doesn't stop the politicians from moving forward with their plans. Now, House Speaker Pelosi from California is determined to nationalize California's experience, as she released an ambitious package of climate proposals that calls for a combination of government mandates, tax incentives, and new infrastructure aimed at bringing the U.S. economy's greenhouse gas emissions, including carbon dioxide and methane, to zero by 2050. Now, the proposals would mandate electric utilities be net zero emitters of greenhouse gases by 2040, and automakers produce only electric cars by 2035. Now, this all sounds great, and I love it, and we're all for it. But is it realistic? Does it work? Well, that doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, that's just a minor inconvenience. They want you to believe that your inconvenience of having to go without electricity for a few hours a day is well worth the trade-off of saving the planet. And it doesn't just stop there. As a matter of fact, the far-reaching plan that I guess isn't ambitious enough for the Pelosi side, we have the Democrats' new left wing, which is led by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, and she's calling for getting all of the nation's power from renewables and zero emission sources 10 years sooner than the plan from the House Democrats. Now, I just think that before we launch history's biggest increase in mining, digging up the world, digging up millions of acres of pristine areas, encouraging childhood labor, create epic waste problems, maybe, just maybe, we should just stop and reconsider our almost inexhaustible supply of natural energy. And maybe we should just ask ourselves, are we okay living in a world with rolling blackouts? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you see the trade-offs? Before you call me out on this and say BS, put your argument in the comments and I'll try to respond to every single one of them. That's what I got for you today. To your success, I'm out.